Edition of Personality Profile here on Joy 99.7 FM. Really glad that you're tuned in. Tonight is a very special night, honestly. Yeah, I've been looking forward to tonight for forever. It's finally here. Even better, my guest was singing along to the song Hall of Fame, and I'm glad today he is in my Hall of Fame. We're spending time with an amazing gentleman, rocking his lovely suit and an African print tie. Is he African? This evening we spent time with the British High Commissioner to Ghana, His Excellency Ian Walker, on Joy 99.7 FM. Well, I got to know that he's Kojo, so welcome to the show, Kojo.
Oh, well, shucks, what an introduction. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's absolutely great to be here.
Good to have you as well. How are you? And I love your African print tie.
Oh, well, you know, I think we talk about African textiles, so it's you've got to walk the talk, I think. And there's so many great ties that I've managed to buy here, and I love wearing them. They kind of brighten up an otherwise rather dull grey suit.
See.
So it's my token effort. I like them.
Well, there you go. You can check it out. We're live on Facebook. Yes, you can get on our Facebook page and join the conversation. Our WhatsApp number is also active, 0244340437. We get to know a little bit more about his work, his life, his fun life, and his love for music. Honestly, I didn't know he was going to be singing along the Scripps Hall of Fame.
I kept my voice there in case you turned the microphone on. I was worried about that.
I should have. I should have. Anyway, but how's Ghana treating you now?
Ghana's fantastic. It's it's a massive privilege to be High Commissioner here, and there's so many great things about being in this wonderful country, and I really mean that.
Like what?
Well, I just think the number of people that I meet that I genuinely find just so full of ambition, so full of optimism, so full of energy. I think driven by something that I kind of would love to see in so many other countries, just this sense of optimism and wanting to kind of shape their own future. I see that in so many different domains. I realise there are, of course, many challenges here. I'm not blind to that, but I think the people that I meet are just so many of them are just absolutely wonderful, and that's a real pleasure to be part of.
Ian, be honest with me. When you first heard that you were coming to Ghana, what were your first thoughts?
My first thought was excitement. I mean, I didn't kind of get told to come to Ghana. I wanted to come to Ghana.
Oh, you wanted to?
In the way that our system works, you apply. So you have to be obviously within the right kind of field of people to be eligible. But once you are eligible, you apply.
Right.
And I wanted to come here because I think that, as I said, so many challenges in Ghana, but so many opportunities as well. And I just think massive opportunity for Ghana in the next 5-10 years, and I want to make sure I can be a part of that.
Amazing. You've been here a little over a year, right?
Yep.
It's heading on to 2 years?
Yep, that's right, yep.
Wow, 2 years this year?
2 years in September, yeah.
Give me a bit of scope about your work, because I know you do a lot of work on prosperity, on security, on development. Let's get to understand your role here in Ghana. What role are you playing?
So, as the High Commissioner, so the title High Commissioner is very, very similar to Ambassador. It's just that within Commonwealth countries, the name High Commissioner applies instead of Ambassador. So that's the kind of the title. But in terms of in practice, I represent the UK government here in Ghana. So I then work on behalf of the UK government, working with the government of Ghana across a whole range of things. So that could be in the international arena, so in things like the UN, on areas around any multilateral bits when countries kind of come together to discuss things, we would be working with the government on that. But we also then work on areas around trying to attract more investments as we try and bring more UK companies to come to Ghana, to invest in Ghana. We've also got a very large development programme here in Ghana and have done for many, many years, working in health and education, but increasingly in things like financial services, in agriculture. So we work in all those domains as well, so we're trying to cohere that. And then in security and other areas as well. So basically, there's a whole range of things we're doing. We've got quite a big team.
Which of these things is prime for the UK?
So I'd say there's three things that we really care about. Firstly, we can see that the economic development of Ghana is key. Big youth, kind of growing youth, and a real demand for jobs, and the kind of growing prosperity of the country. So I think the economic strand is probably the first.
Okay.
I think secondly, security really matters. I mean, we see what's happening in the in the sub-region in Burkina Faso and so on. And I think Ghana is that bastion of tolerance, of democracy, of stability. We want to make sure that remains, and they can do more of that. And then thirdly, on health and education, we care about that and have done for a long time. Those are the three things I would say we care about most.
Okay, good stuff. We'll talk a bit more about work later, but I really want to get to know you. I mean, I was excited when I heard that you're actually going to do what we call the Ghana Grand Bikeathon.
Yeah.
I'm a lover of fitness, so anything that involves fitness, I'm excited about. So I heard about the Grand Bikeathon where you're going to ride from Paga to Accra.
Yeah.
Yes, serious.
Yeah, so
Wow.
serious. So we've called it the Ghana Grand because it's 1,000. We think it's 1,000 kilometres.
1,000 kilometers.
We're going to cycle over 9 days from the north of Ghana to the south in August. And really, the intention is that again, as a High Commissioner, you can tend to be driving around in a 4x4 and. Obviously we go to meet people around, but I think there's something a bit more accessible when you're on a bike, on a bicycle, and I want to kind of just get out, meet people in their communities, not necessarily coming to my office, but me going to them. And I think there's so many great things about Ghana, about West Africa, and I think too often the narrative isn't the one that it should be. There's so many great people, so many great things going on. So I hope, in my own small way, to see people in their environment and to try and tell my experience of that story to another audience. So that's the inspiration.
Are you going to be doing it alone, or you're taking Abigail with you?
Well, Abigail, I'm sure will be there. Whether we get her on a bike might be a challenge, but I'll be doing it with one or two colleagues at the High Commission, and we're hoping actually that for the last leg we're going to try and get a very big group of people to come
I
together.
think maybe I'll join the last leg of it. I don't think work will permit me to go away for 9 days on a bike. Or probably my legs will permit me to do that.
We can take the radio station with us.
We can take the radio station with us, Anyway. But let's get up close and personal. Let's get to know you well. Were you born in the UK? Were you bred in the UK?
That's right, yeah. So I was born in Scotland, in Dundee, in the northeast of Scotland. So it's about 60 miles north of Edinburgh. And I was born there. I went to school there. I went to university there.
Of Dundee?
At the University of Dundee, yep. So I read law at university in Dundee.
We did some work with Dundee here on Joy FM.
Oh, right.
We did a scholarship program.
Oh, wow. Okay,
with
great.
University of Dundee. So we got a few people scholarship to be in Dundee.
Fantastic.
Yeah, with GSA, one of our partners here.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think through some of our own scholarship programs, there's been many people have gone to Dundee and to many other UK universities, but it's I think Dundee's it's a reasonable sized town, but it's quite accommodating for students that go there because it's not so big it becomes intimidating, and it's got a nice kind of campus kind of feel to it. So it's my parents still live there. I think my mother is actually tuning in from Dundee online. She's
say hello to her.
Yeah, exactly.
What's her name?
That's Mabel. So you can say hello to Mabel.
I
did promise
Mabel.
her to say hello. She'll be blushing at this one.
Hello, Mabel. Regards from Ghana. So how was childhood like? How was growing up in Dundee like?
So
I know Dundee. I've been there. It's a very cute community.
Yes, I mean, I think I regard myself as being incredibly fortunate. Not just saying it because she's listening, but two kind of wonderful parents and great kind of family and great friends, all in a very nice community. So I feel in many ways hugely privileged. But what I think is interesting when I kind of look back on Dundee is the things you're unaware of as a child. So as a child I was going to the local school, local primary school and the local secondary school, but Dundee was changing a lot during those years in the late 1970s, early 80s, when there was a lot of job losses as a result of big companies starting to move around and globalisation starting to happen. So the city was changing really quite significantly. So when I say we lived, it was a real fortunate. I don't think Dundee was it's a real mixed community of people who were in all sorts of different walks of life, and that's one of the things I think I liked about Dundee, the sense that people that I went to school with, some of them the children might have been children of doctors, some of them might have been children of people who were unemployed. There was no real kind of distinct kind of breaking into people of different social classes. It was all one, and that's something that I think has probably been
Did it just look like that, or it was like that?
It was like that, absolutely, period. It was like that. It was the local primary school, and people were from all different walks of life. In fact, I've got a very good Ghanaian friend who's now back in Accra, who was at my primary school in Dundee. His father was training in Dundee at the time. So he was there for 6 years when I was there, and I'm still in touch with him, and that's been great. But I suppose my point is, one can sit in any part of the world and look somewhere else and think, gosh, it must have been all wonderful and privileged.
Mm-hmm.
I think what was privileged about it was the sense of community and the sense of people being part of the same community, more than necessarily being all particularly kind of wealthy and fantastic. I think there was lots of great things there, but it was the community that made it strong.
So is the upbringing such that you're actually thinking of what you would be when you grow up?
Well, there's a famous. Do you remember the film, the Hugh Jackman film that was Australia by Baz Luhrmann? There's a famous kind of quote in that the Baz Luhrmann famously said that some of the most interesting people he met, even when they were 70, didn't know what they wanted to be when they grew up. And I sometimes feel a bit like that because I don't think I thought as a child that I want to be X or Y. And in many ways, I'm not sure I even think that's now. I think that kind of sense of keeping a fluidity of what you might want to apply yourself to is something that is increasingly common. So I'm one of the worst, I think, guests at schools when they say to inspire, because I think that actually keeping an open mind about things is a good way to do things. And I always felt, as a child, I was keen to learn more and experience more. I don't think I was aiming for a particular target.
Wow. Keep it fluid. I think that's the first thing I'll pick from you today. Yeah? You can WhatsApp at 0244340437. So from the primary school, from the local school there, you still stayed in Dundee, studied a little further?
And I went to my local secondary school. Yeah, so again, it wasn't... and again, I think one of the things I liked about that was the fact it wasn't streamed, it wasn't for any kind of academic elite, it wasn't a fee-paying school, it was the whole... anyone went to that school, it was a huge school. And a brilliant school actually, Harris Academy, and I loved my time there. And you just, I think you get to then interact with so many different people of different kinds, and I think that's when I started to realise you spent more focus on sports.
Yeah.
I love sports, on music, loved music, and academics was something that you, in many ways, felt you had to do because you had homework to get done more than particularly enjoying it at the time.
I know you mentioned your Ghanaian friend who attended your primary school, but how much of a cultural diversity was there even at that level?
Honestly, not a great deal. I think UK has changed significantly. But my friend I've spoken to since I came back to Ghana, and I've had that conversation with him about how when he came to Dundee, he felt like he felt like he stood out. He was quite different at the time. I think that the UK and Dundee has changed, but I think it's become much more diverse. But I think at the time, not even though I think the thing
not much of that.
My sense, though, to be honest, is that, and this was the conversation I was having with him just a few weeks ago, was as children you don't think about it, right? As children that. You remember someone because they're good at football, or you remember someone because they're fast at running. You don't remember them because they're of a particular colour, creed, or whatever. That when you're a child, and I think that's something that as adults we should not forget. That children remember distinguishing characteristics of people are particularly good at, such as football, or they were top of the class, not where they were from. Children accept other children so easily. I think it's something adults could learn quite readily from children, frankly.
So how come that there's that distinction now that we're adults? What do you think causes that now people are being recognized for their race or where they're from?
Yeah, I mean, I hope that's changing. I mean, one reads in the news and in the media a lot of kind of challenges around that kind of thing. But I think for me, I spent a long time in London after I left Dundee, and I just had friends of every kind of, almost from every corner of the world. And I just think for me, it's this kind of sense of, often in the media we can talk about some of the negative stories, when underlying that's a lot of really positive integration and commonality. And I'm much more of an optimist than I think sometimes we read in the news.
Okay. So I know the Dundee area is known for oil a lot. Mm-hmm. University of Dundee, like that, does a lot of courses in oil and gas.
That's
and Ghanaians have been patronizing that school in particular since we discovered oil in commercial quantities a few years ago.
Yeah.
So what did you study in the University of Dundee?
So I studied law.
You studied law?
Yeah, and...
wanted to be a lawyer?
Well, I don't know about that. So I studied...
You just studied law because
I think I studied law because I thought... I'll be honest, when I was younger at school, I didn't necessarily assume I would go to university. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I think once I got my grades at school, it then became a relatively continuous process to go to university. And I didn't really know what I wanted to be, so I felt that by studying law, it opened up a lot of doors.
Yeah.
And I thought I may want to be a lawyer, or I may want to do something else after that. And it turned out.
Would you have made a brilliant lawyer?
Well, I suppose in the absence of any counterfactual, I could say yes, I would have been unbelievably good. Yeah, exactly. They would be making movies about me.
But Ian, be honest with me. Were you a sharp student? Were you a brilliant student?
I don't know. I wouldn't have said brilliant student.
A, B, C, D.
Yeah, I did okay. I did okay in school. But I wouldn't. I think honestly, I did okay because I think when it came to exams, I guess ultimately worked quite hard and. I guess that's the
good stuff. So let's talk about work life now. I mean, now you're the High Commissioner to Ghana. Let's talk about when you started working. Did you ever practice with law? Did you?
No. So after reading law, I decided I didn't really want to be a lawyer, and I think for me it was because I think I felt a bit like I wanted to understand more about business. I wanted to understand more how the kind of the city of London worked and so on. And I felt if I went to become a lawyer, I wasn't too interested in things like criminal law and family law. Interesting to other people find, but they weren't really my thing.
What interested you most? What were your interests?
So I read more kind of commercial. Ultimately, it was more commercial law towards the end. So what I did was I opted to then join a company called Ernst & Young, who are a kind of financial services firm.
Yeah.
And I moved to London after uni and did my chartered accountancy qualification. So that took 3 years and worked mostly in banking and capital markets and worked in the city. And that was an amazing experience. I think amazing because you're just thrown into the deep end and just learning things about which I'd hitherto known almost nothing. Yeah. So it wasn't so much the accountancy qualification that was the interesting bit. In fact, that was arguably not that stimulating at all. But working in the city was interesting. Understanding how banking worked and how the city worked really did interest me, and that floated my boat. So I worked there for kind of 3 or 4 years, and then that's when I had another kind of shift, I suppose, which was do I want to go on and be I guess head towards being a kind of finance director type of role, or do I want to work longer in the city? And I kind of felt it was interesting, but I realised at that point I was not really motivated by money. Clearly, you want to
because you had enough.
I wouldn't have said that. I just think getting up in the morning and working, getting up early, going to work, coming back late, and the motivation being earning money. It's just I don't have anything against that, but it wasn't kind of what kind of drove me. I think probably keen to make sure I was doing something I found, I suppose, intellectually stimulating, and I suppose in some way kind of more deeply rewarding, I suppose. But I
you didn't find that in the financial services?
Not so much, to be honest.
I thought that was one of the fields.
So what I found was the experience I had was I was keen to do something different. And I was offered a secondment to New York or to Sydney, and at the time I thought if I go to New York it will be just like London, and if I go to Sydney I'll never come back to the UK, and I'm a bit of a homebird in truth. And so that was kind of what thing in my head, and I thought, well, I want to do something really quite different. And I read this absolutely marvellous book called The Selfish Altruist. The Selfish Altruist. And the thrust of it being that even when you think you're doing something that's very generous, and you'll hear what I kind of in a moment what was in my mind. Actually, there's a selfish element to that as well. And this book was kind of provoking. It was by a director of Oxfam that wrote it. But so in my mind, I was quite keen to go and do something useful. That was what was in my mind. So I took what became ostensibly what was going to be a year out, and I went to be a volunteer in Malawi for an NGO. So there was a kind of altruistic element to that, no doubt. Mm-hmm. But there was also a selfish element to that, which I think is worth being really clear about, which was I wanted to go somewhere that was different. I wanted to go and meet people that I wouldn't meet if I was working in central London. I wanted to meet people in a different kind of environment entirely, and I couldn't do that in London, I couldn't do that in New York, I couldn't do that in Sydney. So there was a very clear selfish bit around that, which I think married with my kind of desire to do something different. So I went to go work for an NGO in Malawi, initially managing some of their bigger programs, and then that was just, I saw the great things about development in Malawi and some of the more challenging things.
Did you do that pro bono?
Yeah, so I had my kind of the cost of my flights covered, and I was given accommodation to stay in, and that was it. Yeah,
and that was it.
Yeah, so that was kind of how it worked, and I stayed doing that for nearly kind of a couple of years. First year in Malawi, and then I went to Ethiopia and to DRC. And a bit of time in Zimbabwe, working on programs that were delivering humanitarian responses to
Okay.
natural kind of problems that had emerged in those countries. So,
What did those experiences teach you?
well, as I say, I think for me, I saw a lot of the good things about developments and a lot of the not so good. So I suppose the good was the fact that we were doing, in the case of Malawi, this is 2002, major programs on food distribution programs, on programs around for mothers, new mothers there'd just been a famine at the time and a major kind of crop failure for 2 harvests. So there was a major problem that was being met.
Okay.
So there were some things that were very directly, purposeful, and we were doing big agricultural programs. The bits that were less satisfying that I found quite challenging were major international programs that were doing things such as then, in the similar kind of good intention, bringing in large kind of containers of frozen chicken as a way of kind of feeding the population. On the face of it, a good thing. In practice, really not, because I played football on a Wednesday night as a player here, and one of my good friends then, good friend now, was a chicken farmer, and this importation of free goods was really undercutting his business.
Yeah.
And he had employed many people, and it was undercutting the local kind of business. So what was on the face of it a good thing was in practice really quite destructive in many other ways. And I suppose with my slightly kind of with my background, I just felt good and keen to challenge that kind of rather kind of flawed logic. And so, as I say, I've seen some really good examples of development and some things where it has some very obvious limitations.
At what point did government work come in, if I can put it that way? Is this your first assignment as a diplomat?
So after I left Ethiopia, I kind of moved back to London. I'd met my now wife, so I'd promised I would come back at some point. And,
where did you meet her?
I actually met in London just before I moved away. I guess when you're when you're looking the least, I guess there's some. So just before I gone.
How did you meet?
We worked together actually at Ernst & Young. So
we were mixing business with pleasure.
Well, don't want to comment on that. So that was, the timing was a bit tricky. But she came to see me a few times in East Africa, and I'd come back occasionally. But so I came back after that, and I then joined Department for the Environment in the UK, and then I went from there into Number 10, and I was in Number 10 Downing Street for a few years, working on a range of different programmes, all in the public sector, all on the kind of government side. So as a civil servant, not as any kind of political appointment. Same as here, so I'm not a political appointment, I'm a professional kind of civil servant. Okay.
What does it take to become the High Commissioner to any country, or let's say to Ghana?
So I guess I'm quite unusual for many of our High Commissioners or ambassadors. Many people join the Foreign Service when they leave university and spend their career in the Foreign Service, but I think that's changing quite a lot. Our Foreign Office, I think, values increasingly experiences from outside. So in my case, having had experience in the development
Malawi,
world, and also in the city, and then separately then in government for many years, I think everyone increasingly recognise that everyone has their own story and brings their own set of skills. So most people would work their way up through the Foreign Office in multiple postings. For me, immediately before I was here, I was the finance director in the Foreign Office. And before that, I was in the strategy team in the Foreign Office, where I'd gone from Number 10. So I've been in the Foreign Office for about 10 years.
Okay.
And this is my first head of mission role, so it's a big challenge and a big opportunity.
Was this something you hoped for?
Yeah, it's certainly something that I aimed for, very, very much so. It's something that I've been very keen to do, and very keen to, in truth, come back to Africa. I was very keen to come to West Africa. I was very keen to come specifically to Ghana, because I think what I see in Ghana is clearly a middle-income country, clearly coming out of a lot of development support. But as I said at the very top, I think the aspiration, the ambition, and the ability to be completely economically self-standing is something that I think is within Ghana's grasp. I think that's a hugely inspiring place it could be. So I think I'm keen, as I said at the start, in my own small way, to try and be a part of that, where this is not a relationship that's based on development or being a donor. It's a relationship that's based on partnership. It's one that's based on a long history of the UK and Ghana together. We've now got to enter a different gear, and this is about us working as equals, as kind of frankly friends, I'm working out how do we help each other move forward, and I'm totally committed to making that happen.
So can the commissioner be removed from office before their time, and what might the reasons be?
For being removed, yeah, I mean, sure. I think if I was to be, commit any fraud or commit any kind of criminal action, I'm sure I could be removed. I don't plan to, for the avoidance of any doubts. It's quite unusual to be removed, in truth, but there are examples of when it's happened. But generally,
what's the duration of your tenure?
So I'll be here for 4 years.
4 years.
Yeah, so I'll be here for another two and a bit years.
Do you hope to stay longer?
I think we'll see. I think we tend to have rules that stick to 4 years, so it's unlikely that I would stay longer. But one never knows. But
how do you describe your stay so far?
Just non-stop. I think that I'm convinced that time moves quicker in Ghana than it does in the UK. I just feel that days disappear and so do weeks, and then months. Time flies by. How would I describe it? I describe it as a time where there are big changes happening in Ghana. Very big changes, I think, in terms of the aspiration not just to move beyond aid, but Ghana's relationship with many other countries in the world and where it's trying to get to. I think in the UK it's a time of big change with, I think it's a great time of big change with Brexit, and the UK re-examining its kind of role in the world and who it wants to work with and how. And I'm a big believer that, these things happen through kind of collective will and people working together and kind of talking and having better conversations, not from just one person saying this is how it will be. And I detect a kind of latency, and I have done for 18 months, a latency in the UK-Ghana relationship. There are 250,000 people of Ghanaian descent living in the UK. Huge number of people from the UK living in Ghana, and I think the only thing that's holding us back is a greater sense of common purpose. So we're trying to bring that through. I think we're so naturally kind of friends, but I too often when I arrived, I felt too much of the description was one that was backward looking. Too much was one of we've got a shared history, whereas I want to change that to be much more future focused, to say the kind of the values that we can often take for granted are things that matter more than anything. The respect for democracy, the respect for the rule of law, the kind of the desire to kind of grow, I think are things that we just mustn't take for granted. We've got to double down and really invest in that.
What intrigues you about Ghana?
Well, many things. So I think before I arrived, one of the things I was really keen to kind of get my head around was many of the traditional structures and the traditional kind of leadership that exists in Ghana, and the role of traditional leaders and such like that. I continue to find that fascinating. I also find the way that the interfaith tolerance, I find that really both inspiring and something I want to continue to understand more about. I think it's incredible the way that Christians and Muslims not just cohabit, and that's I hope quite normal in many places of the world, but the way that that's just so normalised, I think is brilliant, and something we can all learn from. But also really how those kind of religious beliefs come into the kind of traditional structures. I also find it. So I think a lot of the cultural things are what really fascinate me.
Okay. What irks you about Ghana?
Okay. So what irks me about Ghana? So people never saying no. No one ever says no.
That's right.
Because I think everyone is so polite, and it's clearly quite. See, to me it seems, and maybe I'm wrong, but to me it seems that everyone's so polite, so they don't like to say, "Oh, I disagree with you," or "No." They will say that yes, but they won't necessarily agree at all. So you could be left with the impression everything's fine when actually it's not. And I think that's quite. It's not so much I'd like to change as something. I'm a guest in your country. That's for me. That's for me to adapt to. But it's different. I find that unusual for me. That's one of the things that I'm learning.
What's the last experience you had where you expected somebody to say no and they said yes? Which one comes to mind?
It's not so much that expecting people to say no. It's more so it can be everything from menial things such as inviting people to dinner and they'll say yeah.
What, you say
no? No, it's more when you kind of get to 7 o'clock. You say, "Are you still coming?" Yes. Yeah. Just say no. It's fine. I don't mind. No, it's absolutely fine. Just say no. But no, that's a small thing. But I think it is a cultural thing where everyone just. I suspect you could all hear from each other's intonation when yes might mean no. Whereas I think I'm getting better at that now. So I'm getting better.
Since you mentioned time, who's more on time, a Ghanaian or a British?
Well, I avoided that trap. I mean, I think I heard before that the GMT was Ghana mean time. I find that the timekeeping's pretty. It's not too bad. It's not too bad. Yeah.
You've been very diplomatic. That's good.
I do my best.
Yeah, you'd live long. So your predecessor, Judd Benjamin, was a free spirit. I'm sure you heard a lot about him. He was like, he always poked fun at people. I mean, even now, he's still tweeting about Ghana. He keeps ties with Ghana very strongly. He was more like your regular guy. Do you bear the same similarities somewhat with him on that score?
So I know John well. John's a good friend of mine. I think we're different, but we're all different, right? We're different. I think we go about things in slightly different ways. I hope I'm approachable. I try to certainly be approachable. I'm not quite as prolific on Twitter. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And I think what we've been trying to do really in the last 18 months or so is really kind of move towards getting a real kind of sense of purpose of what we're trying to kind of build between our two countries, and I think that's the mood we're trying to move towards. But I want to make sure we keep a good sense of playfulness, fun, and being accessible and normal people that are just can be talked to in any way.
You've stayed away from commenting on a lot of Ghanaian issues, understandably so. But how do you describe the relationship between Ghana and the UK now?
I think it's in rude health. I mean, I don't think there's any major challenges there at all. I think the biggest risk we face is complacency. So I think it's about making sure that when we say, for example, that we want to work with each other, that we pick those areas we want to work together on. And if we want to see more, in the case of the business space, more investment, then we should pick those areas. In the case of health and education, we're heavily intertwined, so I think it's about accelerating that and taking it further. So no, I think it's in rude health at the moment.
What do you make of the political system in Ghana?
I think Ghana's democratic credentials are, I think, the envy of many, and rightly so. I think the fact that there has been so many peaceful transitions of power in Ghana is something that should be rightly recognised. Ghanaians should be rightly proud of. I think what's been, I guess, a surprise to me is quite how far and wide the kind of split, I suppose, is between the two major parties. I think in the UK, I'd say that the two major parties are quite distinctive and quite separate, but there's a lot of space. It's perhaps slightly less political. There's some more kind of common ground. So I think that's been, when I look at the kind of politics here, I guess I sometimes think that some more areas of common interest would be really healthy.
Do you think Ghana should adopt the British monarchy system?
No, I think you've made your own choices, and I think there should be respect. And I think I think you've got a very sound system. It's how it's then applied, right? And I think the opportunities for Ghana are not around monarchy. I think it's around the future development of the country and the future growth of it. And I think that the President has made some very kind of clear commitments on that. And it's now about delivering a lot of that, I think.
What's your take on the media freedom as it pertains to Ghana?
Well, it's a kind of a lesser known fact that Ghana, I think, was 27th this year in the world kind of press freedom league table index, and the UK was 40th. So Ghana is 13 places higher than the UK in the World Press Freedom Index. And I don't think you get there by chance. I think that's because you have a very open, very free and very fair media. And I think that's to be lauded again and to be encouraged. But I think any country, including Ghana, if you're 27th or if you're 40th, you always want to be better.
Yeah.
And I think that clearly there has been with Anas and Ahmed and others the examples of where there's been problems and examples where we'd like to make sure that media freedom isn't something again that's taken for granted, but is absolutely both celebrated and reinforced continually, because it's the. I guess my view is that we often talk about democracy as being just about voting, and it's not. You know, democracy is about having, for me, it's about having a free media, it's about having freedom of expression, it's about having, you know, the rule of law, all these other kind of critical bits. So freedom of the press is absolutely essential.
The last time I saw you had fun was at the Queen's birthday. You had a lot of fun. Goodness. So tell me, why is the Queen's birthday observed here in Ghana, even with her in absentia?
So we regard the Queen's birthday as a time of, it's like almost like our national day, I suppose. We celebrate the Queen. She's it's 93 this year. A source of inspiration, I think, to many of us in the UK and to many people beyond as well. Why do we celebrate it? I think we celebrate it because we think that she represents many of the things that are great about the UK. We use it as an opportunity to reach out to those in Ghana and many of the great things that are in Ghana. So we had Afia and we had King Promise performing, and they absolutely brought the house down. They were tremendous.
Amazing stuff.
And we had a lot of great people there as well. And I think it was about, you know, again, I just keep going back to this. It's a very simple point, but it really matters. Is the sense that, you know, people engage with people. So when you get together, when you're having conversations, that's when things grow.
Yeah.
So that kind of event's a great chance to get like-minded people together and to think about what they want to do next.
So what, is it observed in all the high commissions across
all around the world? Every single embassy and high commission around the world. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's
good stuff.
It's a big thing. It's good fun.
Anyway, you look to have enjoyed Afia and King Promise. Any other you enjoy here in Ghana?
I think the Ghanaian music scene is just. Well, so let me say, I suppose two things I think about this. I think the Ghanaian music scene is just incredible, isn't it? I mean, are you allowed to like Shatta Wale and Stonebwoy? Because I'm in if you were to draw the Venn diagram, I'm one of the few people in that middle bit that kind of likes them both.
You can't be in the middle on that. On that particular score, you have to choose a side.
Okay.
No Ghanaian is in the middle.
Okay, well, let's talk with someone else. I like them both.
No!
I like their music. That's good.
And you have to choose one: Stonebwoy or Shatta Wale.
Shatta Stonebwoy.
that doesn't work.
Stonebwoy Wale.
No, man. Oh, Patapa.
I like Patapa as well. Very good. I like him as well. I like the Manifest. I think there's so many. Yeah, the Ghanaian music scene's absolutely thriving just now. But I think that the bit that I think is the slightly more unfortunately kind of serious point is it does bother me that so many great artists are struggling to make a living in Ghana. And how do we work with government, how do we work with these artists to kind of share experiences of, it's not in any way to say the UK knows best, we certainly don't claim that, but how do you get a way that enables those artists to make a good living here in Ghana as well as around the world, because the quality is just tremendous, and people like Stormzy are absolutely the biggest names in the UK at the moment, so yeah, I'd like to find a way of encouraging that.
Well, since you mentioned Stormzy, one of my favorite Stormzy songs I'd play for you. Yeah? Blinded by Your Grace.
Good choice.
Joy 99.7 FM.
Super Hits Radio. Joy 99.7.
It's 9.7
I'm
FM.
blinded by your grace. I'm blind.
Super Hits Radio. Joy 99.7.
The family here in Ghana?
Yeah, they're all here. So I'm here with my wife and 3 children, and they're all enjoying all that Ghana has to offer. The fine fare, the good weather, and they're making their own
How
friends.
old are they, the children?
So they're 10, 8, and 4. So yeah, they're quite
Good
little,
stuff.
but they're. As I said, I think children adapt super quick, and they've given, in truth, for my wife and I, they've given us quite a good insight into lots of other bits of life in Ghana, including when my son unfortunately had a bit of an injury recently, being down at Korle-Bu and seeing the hospital. So you just see different, meeting friends in different domains. You just see a bit of life in a way that you can often be a little bit kind of protected from as a High Commissioner. So it's quite nice being here with your family. It's a much more normal living existence, if I could put it that way, and seeing the good things and the less good things that people that you kind of see around the country. So that's really good fun.
What do you do for fun?
So Honestly, the combination of work and family is kind of about 105% of my time. I like exercising. I tend to try and run. I tend to try and cycle. I play football badly. I play a bit of hockey now and again, badly, but enthusiastically, but badly. But no, sports I enjoy a lot.
The football bit we understand. You're Scottish.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, enthusiastic but badly. That's Scottish football, maybe in a nutshell.
Exactly. What drives you, Ian?
What drives me? That's a good question. I think trying to make a bit of a difference, trying to spend your time usefully, put your energies into something that you care about, or that I care about, is something that kind of drives me. And I really do just see huge potential with significant challenges, but huge potential, and finding a way of just kind of cutting through the noise and just saying let's make a difference. Let's try and pick some areas, let's prioritise, and let's do something different. So that's what motivates me, I think.
As we wrap up, Ian, tell me, how would you want Ghanaians to remember you?
Well, so this maybe captures a bit about me. So I don't think it's about me. So I'm clearly part of my job is about being out there in the public, and I'd like to personally be kind of remembered as being sufficiently humble that you can kind of listen to people and respond to what they are saying, to be genuinely the kind of person that can work with everybody and would talk to the Queen in the same way as I would talk to the bottle washer. That's kind of my style. But I think in truth it's not about me. I think it's about something bigger than that, and it's about what do we want the relationship between our two great countries to be, and I'd like to play an active and visible part in that in my time here, and make sure that it's not about me, that when I leave it somehow stops, but actually you're building something that's much bigger for the future.
Great. I mean, it's been amazing spending time with you. I know you have another duty to attend to this evening. You never stop working, do you?
Oh, well,
Ian, come on, you should be home. But you've got to go. Before you go, Gilbert sent in a question here. What's your favorite Ghanaian food?
I've got a few actually. So I do like wachi, and I think TZ I had up north a few times is probably my favourite. And I'm still trying to enjoy fufu, and I've still got work to do to get there. But
maybe when we get to Paga for the bikeathon, we can try some TZ from the north.
We'll open up with some TZ. I think we'll start the day with some TZ. I should think.
You wouldn't be able to ride, bro.
It's like cycling with the brakes on.
I know. Thanks a lot, and great spending time with you. Thanks for letting us in on your life a little bit here on Personality Profile.
It's my pleasure.
We wish you the best of Ghana, of course. Enjoy the rest of your stay.
Thank you.
We love you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so
the
much.
feeling's mutual. Thank you.
His Excellency Ian Walker is the British High Commissioner to Ghana, and we had to spend time with him here on Personality Profile. My name is Lexus Bill. Thanks a lot for spending time with us this Thursday evening. It's been great spending time with you. Thanks to my team, Madam Naite, Philip Naya, Beku Sanko, Fisono Fori, and of course, Team Joy.